Mercedes Benz CEO made a huge mistake and now they can't sell any cars. Many would consider the M139 the biggest, disastrous, worst engine in Mercedes Benz history. Not the most inspiring sounding drivetrains, are they? Mercedes made some huge mistakes in the last couple of years. Mercedes Benz now has gone and replaced all of their V8 engines that previous loyalists have absolutely loved with a 2-liter turbocharged engine like this. What we have here is a C-Class C300. Of course, there we have an inline turbocharged 2-liter engine. And that's all well and good if you're talking about a base model vehicle. This is not an AMG. This is a garden variety, daily driving kind of vehicle that you're getting by Mercedes. This one here is a C300 as denoted right there. It gives you a 4MATIC, but that's okay because that's what people buy. When people buy a garden variety entry-level, entry point Mercedes-Benz, that's what they expect. A small engine, small displacement, lower levels of performance. But guess what? Mercedes made some huge mistakes in the last couple of years, and they developed for one of these cars an engine called the M139. The M139 now is going in what we now know as the formerly C63 AMG E. That's a model, of course, that was developed to replace the outgoing C63S that, of course, had a 4-liter twin turbo V8, and before that actually had a 6.2-liter V8 that was naturally aspirated, and the AMG loyalists and enthusiasts absolutely loved it. Mercedes-Benz has put V8 engines since the 1960s in their C-Class AMG models, and they've even run with many V12 engines as well. But lo and behold, in the latest generation 2025, Mercedes-Benz now has gone and replaced all of their V8 engines that previous loyalists have absolutely loved with a 2-liter turbocharged engine like this. Now you're getting a base 2-liter turbo engine developed by AMG that produces in and itself about 460 horsepower. Add it to the electric drivetrain, which now of course is a hybrid, you can get as much as 671 horsepower. There's no question the new generation C63E is faster, more furious and aggressive than anything before it. But that's not the point. There's a couple of major reasons why they're not selling. Mercedes does not sell these, and as a matter of fact, the top executive has called out that decision as absolutely brutal. Now there's conversation, two major things. Number one, the C63 and the C43, unfortunately, rumor has it, may actually be going away and replaced with something called a C53, which denotes a whole new series of numbers. Now, because of the colossal fail by this transition into a turbo 2-liter with a hybrid and replacing all their V8s, they're actually deciding to cut that back and saying, look, you know what, maybe we jumped ahead and we got a little too hasty. That's right, Mercedes-Benz is now saying that they're sort of going to let this production of the M139 sort of run out and run its course in the C63 and the GLC63 and slowly transition to an engine that might be more of a V8 and possibly an inline 6. A 2-liter engine like this Mercedes-Benz is fine for the garden variety driver, the average person who maybe wants a Mercedes-Benz but doesn't want to pay the money. They don't care about the sound, they don't care about the performance, they just want something that has all the features. They give you all the great lighting, they get great fuel economy, they give you all of the interior finishing. Of course, you can get all of the greatness, and a lot of these cars, whether you're AMG or otherwise, quite often feel very much the same. Other than AMG cars, often you'll get carbon fiber, Alcantara, nicer race seats, but most of the vehicle feels the same. A lot of garden variety drivers of Mercedes-Benz really just do not care, and they're satisfied with engines like a 2-liter turbo or like a V6. Some of the other engines, this is just an adding fuel to the fire. The previous outgoing C-Class actually had a V6 engine, and it was naturally aspirated, and that's what a lot of enthusiasts of the brand, as well as AMG enthusiasts, are missing. That naturally aspirated large displacement engines, whether it's V6 or V8 engine. And because they've gone away, and because of recent discussions by AMG senior management, they've made the decisions to transition be due to EU regulations, and in doing so, they're generating small engines, hybrids, 2-liters and beyond, and they're putting them in almost every one of their cars. The main AMG engine that comes to mind was a 6-liter called the M119. That was the first one and the most prominent model that we can actually think about Mercedes loyalists. Then came the M113, which is a 3-valve but slightly more powerful. Then the M113K, it was supercharged, forced induction, and there was really no drawbacks with that. Then the M156 lost the supercharger but gained a little bit of displacement. Then along comes the M157. Of course, it lost the displacement, but it gained a couple of turbochargers, giving it that extra blow to give it the extra performance. Then the M177 lost the displacement, but gained reliability and availability in the C classes, and so it became just a more versatile engine. Then along came the 139. Lost the displacement, lost a turbo, it's gained a lot of power, but it's just no longer a V8 engine. That's what the enthusiasts are bugging about, and unfortunately, senior management proceeded with just doing what they thought was best for the brand, and yet loyal enthusiasts just saying they're not having it. And that's okay. Management believes one thing. The flip side is, if nobody's buying these cars, how can you stay in business? I mean, Mercedes has made a few controversial decisions in recent years. We think about the pure electric G-Wagon. Nobody's buying. We're thinking about the EQE and the EQS. Nobody's buying, and the few that are learning the hard way after 2 years and depreciation that looks like about 60% value lost. They're starting to realize that you've got to speak to what the loyalists are looking for. And when AMG engines go away and take that V8 with them, guess what? They've lost a whole pile of business. And the longitudinal mounted M139 isn't too far from what we're looking at here, right here, where it runs front to back in the engine compartment. But it wasn't exclusive just to the C63 or the GLC63. You also found it in much more exotic cars like the SL43 and the GT43. So unfortunately, it's not just impacting the C-Class Benz lovers, but a whole pile of their lineup is getting impacted by the introduction of this small turbocharged 4-cylinder engine. Now reports, a little juicy rumors that both the C43 and the C63 could be eliminated and replaced with a C53 and using a derivative of an engine that's already existing called the M256M powertrain, and it's a 3-liter mild hybrid engine that you would expect under the hood. Similar is what we're hearing in the E53 as well as the CLE53. Now many people recognize the outgoing V8 engine actually had a few issues: carbon fouling, oil leaks, coolant leaks, and even turbocharger failure, just to list a few. Fuel pumps, oil pumps, and there have been problems along the way. The vast majority of these problems are relatively low numbers, and the mass majority of owners just love those engines. I mean, who doesn't like a V8 engine that's high revving, couple of turbos strapped to it, and produces an excess amounts of performance in the 400 or 500 horsepower range? Means these cars are absolutely fun to drive. But it's also about the sound. It's the rumble. It's that low RPM when you're just cruising along. Nothing that some of these 2-liter turbo engines can accomplish, because a lot of those are high strung and energetic. And while the M139 is an impressive car and engine, even though it's one of the most efficient engines in the 4-cylinder entourage, the fact remains is nobody really wants it. It's efficient, it's powerful, and it's the most powerful 4-cylinder engine in the market today. But that's not really the accolade that AMG drivers are looking for. They want a car with the big engine, the torquey drivetrain, and just think back, the 6.2-liter V8 or the 5.5-liter. Those are engines that enthusiasts of the brand absolutely love. And even more controversy wrapped up in the naming and the nomenclature of calling it AMG Mercedes. Rather, it should be exclusively called an AMG. And that's where a lot of enthusiasts are just saying it's all just becoming very watered down, very much like we're seeing in a lot of manufacturers. BMW's sort of getting that way with some of their M cars, and even you think M5 now, it's the same drivetrains as an X and an X6 and an X5, and it's realistically just becoming that cookie cutter drivetrain. And that's very much what Mercedes Benz is doing with their M139. It's an impressive performance piece. It puts down the numbers, it's efficient, and we know that Mercedes is trying to achieve the EU7 regulations. Making these decisions to build these small hybrid drivetrains or pure electric drives that nobody's looking to buy is just going to leave the business in a very vulnerable position. I mean, already we saw Mercedes Benz is not doing business that successfully in China. China, of course, a lot of that market is seeking lower cost electric vehicles, and all the luxury brands like Mercedes Benz that are hovering over in China are seeing drastic losses in sales, to the point where they're almost really worried about that market disappearing and drying up altogether. This is starting to happen in North America. US, American, Canadian drivers typically gravitate more to the larger displacement engines, and these 2-liter turbocharged high-strung engines with a little electrification just aren't exactly what drivers are looking for these days, and as a result, sales are in the toilet. Many would consider the M139 the biggest, disastrous, worst engine in Mercedes-Benz history, and not so much from the performance standpoint, but why on earth would you put it in one of the most beloved models, the C63S? Not the most inspiring sounding drivetrains, are they? A 2-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine, even though the M139 is quite different than this, that still stands. It just does not sound like a V8 engine. So sadly, again, there's this tug of war between enthusiasts and of course regulators. Regulators seem to be winning the battle with electrification. Hybrid turbocharged small cylinder engines like the M139 means that consumers that actually want the car that they had many years ago are starting to lose the grasp. And unfortunately, Mercedes Benz has really leaned hard into going electrification and of course hybrid. Now that being said, it's always easier said than done. And so at least there's a glimmer of hope. They are talking about, in fact, bringing back that derivative of some sort of a V8 that will likely comply with the EU7 regulations. They're going to have to dig in harder, stronger to try to generate these new engines. BMW's already touted that they're not giving up on their V8s or on their inline 6-cylinder engines, at least not for the time being. Ferrari has also announced recently that while they're developing an electric vehicle, they're also not giving up on their V12s, V8 engines either. So a lot of these manufacturers, while they initially had both feet into the fire, they're all starting to realize that that's not what the consumers want, and ultimately the decision to give them what they're looking for lies strictly at the head table. Anyway, I'd like to hear your thoughts about what you think about that M139 and what your thoughts on why the sales were so bad. Again, as well, always there, be sure to check out that video about the best Mercedes-Benz that I would recommend buying if in fact you are looking for something a little bit more conventional. Hope to see each and every one of you real soon, everybody. See you then. Bye-bye.